Good evening. My name is Leslie Kuhn, and I'm the president of the League of Women Voters of Newcastle. I'd like to welcome you, our audience, and our candidates to the Candidates Forum for the Chappaqua Library Board of Trustees and the CCSD School Board for 2024. The League of Women Voters is a nonpartisan, grassroots political organization of women and men. This means that the League does not support or oppose one candidate or political party over another. We are dedicated to the active and informed participation of citizens in government at all levels. The League works to educate voters, increase understanding and debate on major policy issues, and influence policy through education and advocacy. The League takes positions on policies, not candidates or parties. You can find information about the League, including how to join and to support our work, at our website, lwvnewcastle.org. Our website also has a page dedicated to this election, including an online voters guide containing information submitted by many of the candidates on the ballot. We're really pleased that all three candidates for each of the Chappaqua Library Board and Chappaqua Central School District Board of Education have agreed to participate in tonight's forum. Tonight's forum is an opportunity for voters to hear from the candidates about topics of interest to the community. We thank the many community members who took the time to submit nearly 100 questions to our committee. The committee worked hard to sort those questions into topics of interest and to compile a set of questions from those submissions to cover as many of the topics as possible. We hope that the candidates' answers to the questions posed will help voters learn about the candidates and their positions. We urge anyone with additional questions to seek out the candidates at one of the many meet and greet opportunities they are offering individually. This evening's proceedings are being taped by Newcastle Community Media Center and are being live streamed on YouTube. Thanks to Carrie Krams for facilitating and to Freedom and CJ for working with us this evening. A video will be available on demand at nccmc.com and through a YouTube link, which we'll share out tomorrow. All other recording of tonight is strictly prohibited. And we ask that any public sharing or rebroadcast of tonight's forum be in its entirety and unedited. Thanks to our timekeepers tonight, League members Mary Kirsch and Sheila Burnson. Many thanks to our moderator this evening, Douglas French. Doug is a former mayor of the city of Rye and a past president of the League of Women Voters of Rye, Rybrook, and Portchester. He currently serves on the Westchester County Board of Ethics and has been moderating for the League of Women Voters for 3 years. Doug will now take over the forum to go over the ground rules for tonight's forum, and then we'll begin with the library board.
Great, thank you, Leslie, and hello, everyone. Welcome to this evening's forum. Thank you, Sheila and Mary, in advance. And thank you to the League for putting on this forum. Thank you to everyone here tonight. Thank you to those watching at home. And most importantly, thank you to the candidates. Stay involved. It's very commendable that you're raising your hand to serve the community. Keep doing it. You should be commended. So here are the ground rules for tonight. We have 2 forums. They'll each run about 45 minutes to an hour. We have a series of questions, as Leslie said, submitted by the community. We've drawn in advance the order of opening statements, and it'll be from your left to right with Allison, Sean, and Jennifer. We'll go in reverse order in closing statements. Jennifer, Sean, Allison. And then I will rotate each question to the next candidate. We'll start with the next candidate that didn't answer the first time. Throughout the forum, there'll be no comments of personal nature. I will, deem that when it happens, but it usually never happens. Each candidate has 1.5 minutes, 90 seconds to have your opening statement, have your closing statement, and answer each question. Our timekeeper will flag when there's 1 minute left,
No, 30 seconds.
or 30 seconds left,
And
then stop. Finish your sentence, but I'll use my discretion on that if you keep going too long. We also have rebuttals. You each get 2 rebuttals. So we'll probably, in the next 45 minutes, get through about 6 or 7 questions. You get 2 rebuttals where you can rebut or expound upon your answer. After everyone has answered, I will then ask for rebuttal. You raise your hand if you'd like to rebut, and then I'll call on you. You have 30 seconds. Keep it tied to the policy or your position. And yeah, this is a great opportunity for you to explain to the community who you are, why you're running, what you plan to do, how you plan to do it. And it's a great opportunity to communicate differences in policy and your qualifications as to why you should seek this role, fit this role. Any questions? Okay. So let's get started with the opening statement. And we will start with Allison.
Hey, hi, my name is Allison. I am a nurse here in Chappaqua. I have 4 children, and I'm kind of a library super user. I'm there once a week. I usually have a bag of 30 books. And I really believe in libraries as a public institution. I think they're one of the best things about America. They're, public libraries are, as Carnegie sort of like led the way, a place where communities can gather. We can come together as a community, we can listen to each other, we can find resources to learn things that we didn't know about or just new ways of thinking. I think they're really important, and I think they're more important now than ever. And a couple of months ago, I was driving to work, and there was an NPR story about a library board in the South that really worked hard to ban LGBTQ books. And they really succeeded. And it made me think, now is a time when we know we can always say it won't happen here, but it does happen in places. And it's what I'm passionate about. I'm never gonna run for the Board of Ed. I'm never gonna run for the town board. But I love libraries and I love our library. And I'd love to serve my community in this way.
All right, thank you. Sean, opening statement.
Thank you for setting the tone. I think I agree with a lot of what you just said. My name is Sean Moranis. Thank you also to the League of Women Voters. We're here for a debate, obviously. But when I think of the term debate, I kind of think of competing visions or competing policy positions. I look at this role as a board member for the library very, very differently. Like she just said, I think that the library is really the crown jewel, if not one of the crown jewels of our town. It's an enormous asset that we have. It's an enormous asset that our children have. I look at the role of a library board member as somebody merely kind of guarding this crown jewel. I don't see any real changes. I think just keep doing what they're doing. They have an absolutely wonderful staff. We have a wonderful community who uses the library. So really, you're not going to see any big changes from me. It's really just a total fiduciary role is the way that I look at it. In terms of why me, why you should vote for me, I am almost a lifelong user of the Chappaqua Library. I've probably been going there since 1989. I saw my first experience was a pajama game production in the 1980s, which was fabulous, but I was just a kid, so minimal expectations. I've been using it pretty consistently since then. In terms of my involvement now, I live in town, I have 3 children, I'm there all the time, mostly for my children, but also for myself to a certain extent, and I think it's just a wonderful place that I love going, and I'd love to be more involved
All right.
and have the opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you, Sean. Allison. I'm sorry, Jennifer.
Jennifer. My name's Jennifer Fahey. I'm actually on the Board of Trustees at the current time. My term ends in June of 2024. I stepped up together with 2 other board members in 2022 when we'd had a unfortunately fairly divisive set of events at the board level and 2 resignations in addition to the retiring member in line with the trustee terms. And no one had thrown their hat into the ring. So the 3 of us stepped up. And I can truly say that while the role is, as with all board roles, fiduciary, absolutely, the importance of the collegiality and the level of discourse at that board level, the ability to collaborate and actually get things done is incredibly important. This town's lucky enough to have a fantastic library and a fantastic board of trustees currently. We brought in a new library director in 2024. So at this point in time, it actually is easy to step in and help chart the course of this library going forward. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Jennifer. And I met with the candidates before we got started. We all agreed we would just do first names tonight, so hence the I guess formality, right? Lack of. Okay, the first question in the series, again, you have 90 seconds. We'll start with you, Sean. The question is, why are you running for a library board, and what skills will you bring to the board if elected?
Not to repeat myself, but basically what I just said, I think it's an asset that I would love to be a part of, and I think that given my just historical involvement with the library, I think I have a pretty good sense of the role it serves in this town, the purpose it serves, and I think that, you know, again, the role, as Jennifer mentioned, and Jennifer obviously knows, the role is really just about an allocation of resources and you know, if I do making sure that the current officers and the staff of the library are, you know, using the budget as they should. So I think I have a fairly good sense of how the funds should be allocated and, you know, make sure that it continues to do what it's been doing for so long.
Great, thank you, Sean. Jennifer, I'm gonna read the question again.
No, that's fine.
Okay.
So by further means of introduction, I've been a resident of Chappaqua since 1995 and have had 3 children through the school system. I retired effective year-end 2023. And my prior role with a company named Marsh involved aspects of financial analysis and personnel management and oversight and negotiation and analysis. And all of those skills have proven useful at the library board. I've been, you know, I really think that one of the best ways to speak to why I'm a good candidate for taking a full term, having served this partial term replacing a resigned trustee, is all that we've accomplished just since 2022. We've introduced a new website. We've added a board personnel committee recognizing the importance of personnel across our library and the importance of that staff. We've done things like post-COVID bringing in MERV 13 filters to ensure the staff and patrons are safe. We've reopened the children's program room and added a new study room, pulled an unused room out of staff allocation, made it available to the public. So some exciting things. Thank you.
Right. Thank you, Jennifer. Allison?
Hi, thank you. I've read all the minutes that I could online for since the January of 23, and I think it sounds complicated. It sounds like there's a lot of pieces that are coming together. And it's what I do all day as a nurse, is I'm listening to people, I'm listening to my patients, I'm listening to surgeons. I'm trying to bring people together and make sure we're talking the same language and that we understand each other. And it's what I would try to do at the board, is help people have dialogue and listen to community members and bring that, always about fostering community, even at the board level. And that's what I would continue to do. I think that the board has done amazing work and I appreciate all that they've done thus far. Even we all have new wonderful library cards. That's part of what the board did, and that's what they will continue to do. So I just want to be a part of fostering this community at every level.
Great, thank you, Allison. Our next question, we'll start with Jennifer. Now, some of these questions have combinations of questions, so I'll finish and then you can answer. Trustees' responsibility is the financial oversight of the library. For the past 2 years, the board has not budgeted any funds in the capital reserve. What are your thoughts on that?
So this is been a subject of great deal of discussion at the board. One of the most important changes we brought in line with the retirement of the long-term treasurer who had been originally a volunteer and then stepped up as a sole proprietor. We brought in following his retirement or in anticipation of his retirement, we brought in a firm, Nawrocki Smith. Because we feel that the oversight of the financial statements and spend at the board level is incredibly important. So we brought in a firm that would add a lot of professional strength to that. And they've brought in a lot of focus on checks and balances within our systems. And we've realigned staff for those purposes as well to ensure things are in good stead. In terms, so that in addition to our professional auditor, PKFOD, I think adds a lot of strength. But I apologize, I wanted to make that point about the treasurer and neglected the question. Forgive me. Because
It's, the board has not budgeted any funds in capital reserve.
She could answer.
it's okay. So one of the questions is we have a substantial capital reserve, and historically for the last few years, the board had allocated
Just give
95,000.
10 seconds on this, yeah, go ahead.
Okay, 95,000 toward the budget from toward the capital reserve. We met with Nawrocki Smith, I'm sorry, that's why I wanted to highlight the fact that that was an important change for the board and the library. We met with Nawrocki and discussed what was an appropriate amount of funding as a percentage against our annual spend.
Okay.
And felt that the capital reserve is actually in very good stead at this
Perfect,
point.
I'll give you each additional time if you want on the question as well, or,
No, and look,
well, we're gonna move on. The number 2 is going to be Allison, so I can reread the question?
Please.
Okay. And I didn't ask for rebuttal after the first question because I didn't think you'd rebut why somebody was running. You'll have rebuttal time after this question. A trustee's responsibility is the financial oversight of the library. For the past 2 years, the board has not budgeted any funds in the capital reserve. What are your thoughts on that?
I mean, I think that as somebody going forward, and I know that the fiduciary side of things isn't something I have a lot of experience with, but I would collaborate, I would learn more about it as I went. I would work towards understanding what all the reports and the treasurer reports talked about, and hopefully, I mean, we have a well budgeted library. We all know that I mean, we vote on it every year, and we're treasurers of that, we are stewards of that, and I would do the best I could.
Great, thank you. Sean?
so obviously I haven't been privy to the discussions that Jennifer has had with the auditors. And I have served on other boards before, and I'm a lawyer by training. I'm not an accountant. So what I have historically done in those situations is I rely on the auditors. I think if Jennifer, as she said, is saying that the library is fiscally sound in terms of the allocations to whether the capital reserve or the operating budget. If the auditors are saying that that's stable and that's what they should do based on, anticipated expenditures for the year, I think you listen to them. Things change if is gonna be some sort of capital project, if there's going to be some other expense, obviously things can be changed from year to year, but I think my plan would just be to listen to the auditors and obviously do my own analysis, but rely on their professional advice.
Great, thank you. Any rebuttals? Okay. Question number 3, and we will start back with you, Allison. What do you think should be the priorities for the library moving forward? And what do you envision the library to be in 5 years' time or 10 years?
I know we have some big projects that will be coming up, like working on the roof. If you walk into the library now, there's some garbage cans that are set up to collect some water that's dripping. And there are projects like that that are continually important. I think it's really important that we continue to be a strong place for students to go. There are middle schoolers that spend almost every afternoon there, and I think that's really important. And all of the big capital improvements recently with the new YA sections and the new children's section are amazing. And I think that those obviously will be utilized even more now that the programming is really opening back up. And even small things like the SEED program that's going on out front, I mean, those are amazing programs that I hope we will continue to grow and expand as a library. I think some of the challenges coming up is to remain a place where we can have encourage digital equity, because that's evolving at a more rapid speed than most libraries can keep up with. And I think those are important challenges that the libraries will face in the future.
Great, thank you, Allison. Sean, I'll read the question. What do you think should be the priorities for the library moving forward? What do you envision the library to be in 5 years or 10 years' time?
So the caveat to my answer is the role of the board, as I understand it, is really just financial oversight of the director and what they're doing. So I think that you have to really, if you want it to work as it's intended, really rely on your director and your staff to guide that to a certain extent. Having said that, since you will be involved and you do have obviously some substantive involvement just because you know where the money is going, I think it's almost impossible to predict, because my philosophy would be you're responsive to the community. I don't think the director or the staff or the board should be the one steering the ship necessarily. I think you should be responsive to the community. I have absolutely no complaints with the library right now, so I could just say library should just keep doing what it's doing. I can't predict what's gonna happen in 5 years. There's I'm sure different programs that are to become available. There's gonna be different speakers, all sorts of different resources that might become available. So I think as the library director and the staff and the board should just keep our ear to the ground, listen to what the community wants.
Great, thank you. Jennifer, want me to read the question?
No.
Okay.
No, thank you. So I do have greater insight by virtue of having attended these meetings and been part of the discussion, but it's not just financial oversight, it's also, it's a very collaborative board with the library director. And I was trying to hint to that earlier. We have had periods of stress at the library where there have been moments of difficulty on an administrative basis, whether at the board level or with library directors. We've just had 2 very short-term library directors, and that was a real challenge for the board. And in that situation, the board could not sit back and unfortunately and just be a fiduciary. We had to be very hands-on to keep this very important machine rolling for the community. So that would be the one point I'd make. In terms of my priorities, I really hope that we're able to take the courtyards, which are incredible assets for the library and the community, and improve them. So that you brought up the SEED program, for example. There's so much more we could do to make that space outside the children's area useful for children. The main courtyard for the program events, I've attended so many beautiful evenings, and we've got to be in line with ADA compliance and things.
Okay, any rebuttals or more time? Okay. Great, thank you all. We will now move to question number 4. And this, I believe, is Sean. So Sean. What is a library's role regarding content? And to what extent should the library board engage in review of programs or material offered?
My understanding is that's not their position, that's not their role in terms of content, in terms of the books that are in circulation. So, you know, again, I have to do as the law states and as the law dictates, and as the bylaws dictate. So my understanding is you don't really have control over content, and I would be careful to a certain extent not to overstep my bounds. If something, obviously you have a line of communication with the director and it could be a discussion, but you don't have control over, my understanding is you don't have control over the content and the books that are on the shelves, so to speak.
All right, thank you. Jennifer, same question.
So again, you know, benefiting from a little more insight, there is no law on this. There's the American Library Association guidelines. The library has policies, and Pam Moskowitz and John Harrison and George Benak have just done an amazing job with the new library director, basically reviewing every policy we have and bringing it current, and ensuring they uphold ALA, et cetera. The board absolutely should not be in the position of weighing in on materials, et cetera. I absolutely agree with Sean. We used to have a policy in place whereby the president, it was an old hangover, had to approve each and every program that was presented from the library, which one we felt was just an administrative bottleneck, and two, not appropriate, you know, with a strong library director such as we have now. So we would fall back on the policies.
Okay. Allison, shall we read the question or you? Okay.
I mean, I agree with pretty much what they said. I think our library does a really lovely job of reflecting a variety of reading goals and characters in books. I mean, I read widely, but I'm also spend a lot of time in the Children's Museum or the children's room. Last night I read a book about Holi with my children that was part of a whole collection of books about the Holi celebration in the Hindu religion that's celebrated in March. And, you know, you can step into the library and find a lot of resources. And I think that is really important. And as a community member, I support that. And I think the board, everything I read about all the policy changes, and they were really supporting that reflection of materials already. So I would continue to support that.
Right, thank you. Any rebuttal time?
I'll rebut just by pointing out that the library director, more to Sean's point, does come forward to the board and make a point if there's going to be a program that, you know, could have some controversy around it, et cetera. So, you know, they just sort of do a check with the board, but it's more a courtesy.
Okay, thank you. Now we'll move to question number 5. And if my scoring is correct, I think we start with you, Jennifer. And the question is this: we live in a Chappaqua bubble. What would you suggest the library do to promote new voices and minority voices and experiences to expose our residents to global events, challenges, and learning?
I actually feel, you know, in sort of seconding what Allison said, that our library does a fantastic job. And I don't take credit for this. This has been a long-term thing with our library of acknowledging and celebrating global holidays and events and history and current events. I struggle to think what we can do better except continue down that path of, you know, really celebrating diversity and inclusion.
Great, thank you. Allison?
I agree with that. I also think that, and I think probably we would all do this, we you know, I need to listen to my community. If there's a voice that doesn't feel heard, I would hope that they would come to me and let's talk about it. Let's find a path for you to feel represented at the library. And I think that's one of the best things that we could do is to just listen to each other. And I think the library, I've learned so much at the library, at this library in particular. I've seen speakers from all different walks of life, from different races and from different classes, which I think also Chappaqua might help with the Chappaqua bubble even more sometimes. And I think we need to continue to be a part of that. And I think the library does do a pretty fabulous job, but we can always do better.
Thank you, Allison. Sean?
So I think there was reference made to a bubble. I think that if anything, I think the bubble of Newcastle, Chappaqua Greater, and even more specifically, the library is a bubble of extraordinary inclusiveness and kindness. I grew up in Chappaqua. I then went to a large public university, law school in New York City. I was a prosecutor in the inner city for 6 years. So I think I've dealt with a wide array of different types of people, different types of backgrounds. My takeaway is I think the general Chappaqua community is obviously it's not the most diverse racial community, but I think it's the most accepting, open-minded community that I've ever really been around. I don't think there's any, especially if you look at the library, I don't think there's any shortage of access to different viewpoints. That's my experience.
Great, thanks. Any rebuttal time? All right, and we will move to the last question of the night and then we'll go to closing statements. And I believe, Allison, we're starting with you. What do you think requires more funding at the library?
I think there are some building expenses that are important. I know that they're underway, so I think that's a continuing process. The building itself is getting older, so I think that's important. I think any time that we can put more money towards the teen community is really important because it's a really needed resource here, and there's not that much things for kids to do that are in middle school and early high school years, and we did before COVID there was more programming at that level that I know they're working to bring back, but I think that's really important. So I think also again listening to what the town is hoping for from their library. Are there, just like we have envisioned Chappaqua, like what do we envision from our library? And can we put money towards some of those things?
Okay, thank you, Allison. Sean?
Could you just read back the question? It was funds?
Sure, yeah, what do you think requires more funding at the library?
I think the library, the bones of the building in terms of, the footprint, I think is wonderful. There are obviously some minor maintenance issues that should be taken care of. I don't think that's gonna break the bank, so to speak. If you wanna, focus on one area where I think you should increase funding, like I think the programming is a real draw. Sometimes I'm driving down the street and you see what's coming up and it's just something super interesting. Obviously I got 3 young kids and a full-time job. I have limited bandwidth for library programming. But I think that it could be a real, for people who have more time, I think that it could be a real draw for high school age kids, a positive thing for high school age kids, and also people whose children might be out of the house. So I think increased programming, to put it simply.
And Jennifer?
I'll fall back. Well, one, I neglected to point out that we do have roof issues, but happily we've got a 20-year warranty
Yes.
on the roof, so that will come into play, thankfully, for our community, because that would be expensive. So I'll fall back on the courtyard issues. I am such a fan of the programming that we hold in not just the children's area, but the main courtyard in terms of music and authors, etc. And to be able to make that space more accessible to differently abled and elderly patrons, to add some element of shading to, right now our stage, if you will, is crumbling concrete and doesn't have any sort of safety protection. So there are things that can be done to make that real gem even more beautiful, more useful.
Okay, any rebuttal time, Ashley? All right, well, thank you candidates for the Q&A session. We'll now move to closing statements and we'll go in reverse order, starting with you, Jennifer. 90 seconds.
Thank you. I have been honored to step in to serve the library in our community and welcome, bless you, the opportunity to continue to serve for a full term, and thank you all.
Sean, Sean.
Right, so I think given the role of the board and given the current, function of the library and where we are today, if you vote for me, you're not gonna be getting a candidate that's gonna be doing anything drastic. It's merely a responsiveness issue. And just keep doing what the library's been doing for decades at this point. And I'm excited and would be honored to have everybody's vote.
And Allison.
Well, first I wanna thank Jennifer because I know that you've worked really hard and I appreciate that. And I would love to serve the community and you'll continue to see me at the library. And my favorite book I read last year was Demon Copperhead. And I absolutely think the library is one of the best things we have. And I wanna work to support it, to continue to grow it, and to listen to what any of you have to say about what you want to see there. And I would work hard for everyone in my community. So that's it.
Thank you, Allison. Thank you all the candidates. Thank you to all who came for the session tonight. And thank you to those watching at home, and thank you to the league. I think you heard great conversation and dialogue to the questions that you've asked. We've got 3 terrific candidates, and now it's time to decide. So thank you, candidates. We'll take about a few minutes to switch out. Sheila, I think we just plow on, right? We'll switch candidates and keep on? Okay, all right. So talk amongst yourselves, give us a couple of minutes, we'll switch out the candidates. So welcome to the second part of our candidate forum tonight. Has to do with the school board. And we have three candidates for the Board of Education. My name is Douglas French. I am the moderator tonight. And we read the format at the beginning. Candidates are aware of it. 90 seconds for an opening statement, 90 for each question, and 90 for a closing statement. You have 2 rebuttals you can use, 30 seconds each to either expound upon an answer that you've given or to directly rebut facts in another candidate's answer. So with that, timekeeper Sheila, Mary, are you ready? Okay. We drew by lot order of opening statements, and we have also discussed using first names. So Kaylee, your first opening statement, 90 seconds.
Thank you. Good evening. Thank you to the League of Women Voters for hosting this candidates night. A quick hello and a big shout out to my husband Q and my 3 sons watching from home. Hi. I'm Kaylee Huang, a proud mother of 3 boys ages 10, 13, and soon to be 16, actually on the day of the budget vote and election. I have lived in Chappaqua for 11 years, and for the past 3 years, I've had the opportunity and privilege of serving the community as your school board trustee, and currently the Vice President of the Chappaqua Board of Education. My commitment to providing the best possible education for every child remains unwavering. In addition to being a parent, I am an educator that brings extensive experiences as a classroom teacher, literacy specialist, and staff developer. My professional background has equipped me with valuable insights into the educational needs of our children, and I am dedicated to the success of all of our students. During my tenure on the board, I have actively participated in various committees from audit to health and safety, communications, wellness, policy, and facilities. Additionally, I've served as a liaison to essential organizations such as Horace Greeley Foundation, Chappaqua School Foundation, and the Greeley Sports Boosters. I am grateful to the community for electing me 3 years ago, and now with your support, I seek re-election for a second term. Let's continue to build on the past successes and work together to listen, learn, and grow. Thank you.
Thank you, Kaylee. The next statement is Kim.
Hi, everybody. My name is Kimberly Carey, as you can see. I've lived in Chappaqua since 1993. My children have been a part of the Chappaqua School District. My oldest entered in 2004. I'm an attorney who has practiced in the areas of criminal defense, conflicts of interest enforcement, family court, and transactional matters. I have been active in many community activities, which I've found very fulfilling. I'm running for a number of reasons. First, I have 2 children who have been a part of the special ed program here. Quite honestly, when my first child was given an IEP, the district was awful when it came to special ed. When my other child required an IEP, I was nervous because of my previous experience. And I put her into a private school for a time, just to learn the strategies that allowed her to access her education. I was thrilled when under Christine Ackerman's watch, the special ed program had improved dramatically, and my daughter was able to return to the Chappaqua schools. While special ed is close to my heart, and as great as it is here, there's still room for improvement. However, please understand that my interest in special ed is not exclusive. I want to see all of our children succeed academically and emotionally. Second, I'm incredibly concerned about having SROs in all of our schools, especially the lower grades. I think our children should have a healthy respect for law enforcement, but I don't want the students desensitized to law enforcement nor their weapons. We all want our children to remain safe, but I do not believe that the presence of SROs inside our schools make anyone safer. There are other ways to do that.
Okay, that's time. All right, thank you, Kim. Now, Tim.
Thank you, League of Women Voters, for hosting this forum, and thank you everyone who's watching. My name's Tim McNamara. I'm a husband, I'm a father to 3 young girls, and I'm a Greeley graduate. I grew up here, graduated in the class of 2000, and I had a really wonderful childhood. I attended Cornell University, I majored in computer science. I worked for a very brief period for Goldman Sachs before leaving that industry to pursue my dream to be a firefighter in the fire department of the city of New York. I'm currently a battalion chief in the FDNY. This is my 20th year of service, with 3/4 of my career being in leadership and management roles. The personal and professional aspects of my life have made for such a wonderful journey. And that's why my wife and I decided to raise our children here. We hope that the values they'll learn in this community will give them the courage to lead authentic lives that are true to themselves. I'm running for the Board of Education to preserve that quality of education in our schools by making sure we continue to attract, retain, and empower the amazing faculty who will teach our children how to think critically and inspire them to lead authentic and fulfilling lives. Our teachers are the reason we moved here, and I am very proud to share that the Chappaqua Congress of Teachers has chosen to endorse me in this election. Thank you.
All right, thank you, candidates. We'll now move to the Q&A portion of our forum. And we'll start with Kim, with the first question. What do you think are our district's greatest strengths, and what do you think will be the biggest challenges in the next 5 years?
We have a wonderful school district with high expectations, and the students here are prepared to meet them. I think there are some students in the district who may need a little bit more attention as to maybe their disabilities or the like, but I think we just need to continue along the same line. I am concerned, quite honestly, with the budget coming up and the tax cap. I don't wanna see our children I think our children can be served in other ways, in better ways. I don't think that it's necessary to really exceed the tax cap and strain what we have. I think we can find ways to redistribute what we have and continue to give our children the best of everything, because that's what we all of us want that, and to keep them safe.
Thank you, Kim.
I think that our district has many strengths, from our children, the students, our faculty, the teachers, the administrators. I don't think I would pick one particular aspect. They're all so important. But what I would, referencing the part of the question about challenges in the next 5 years, I do think that a stakeholder group that does need more attention is our teachers. Conversations I've had with some teachers is that they have felt that their expertise is not leveraged fully, that their firsthand experience in the classroom, coupled with their knowledge of leading research, hasn't been taken into consideration with some pretty major course changes and curriculum decisions. And it is so important that our teachers continue to feel valued as valued stakeholders. It's so important that our teachers continue to be happy and to tell their professional contacts that this is a great place to work, so that we continue to attract and are able to continue to hire the top teaching talent.
Thank you, Tim. Would you like me to read the question, or are you good?
I think I'm okay, thank you.
Okay, Kayla?
The strengths of our districts are that we are a community that want to engage and that want to grow. In these polarizing times, school leaders and students navigate not only academic pressures, but also the complexities of mental health issues, security concerns, and pervasive sense of competition. Many students face societal expectations due to the constant barrage of social media. Finding a balance between academic achievement and mental wellness is crucial for schools and critical for all of our students. We must foster a sense of purposeful connection to our entire school community while ensuring physical and emotional safety and providing support for our students and teachers to thrive.
Thank you, Kaylee. We'll now move to any rebuttal? Rebuttal time? Okay. The second question, and this will start with you, Tim.
Yeah.
Some current hot button topics in our community include class size, SRO, which is school resource officer, and tax caps. How would you balance your personal convictions and beliefs with your responsibilities to students and taxpayers?
Yeah, they're all very challenging issues. In the role of a board member, the decisions would be to put the needs and the interests of our children first. And I suppose the first two elements you outlined are essentially expense items, and the third is a mechanism for securing community support of a budget. So I don't see the three as quite the same. In balancing class sizes and community desire for school resources, they're expenses. You can balance them and afford them by scrutinizing your budget and finding other cost savings. You can pay for them by raising additional revenues. In regards to the tax cap, it is a mechanism to ensure a community has a higher level of support for the proposed budget.
Okay, thank you. Jaylee, same question.
Can you repeat the question, please?
Some current hot button topics in our community include class size, SROs, and tax caps. How would you balance your personal convictions and beliefs with your responsibilities to students and taxpayers?
So I have been on the board for 3 years and I know what to do better, how to listen diligently and thoughtfully, and then make conscientious, principled decisions. We have our needs and we have our wants. And in times of polarized opinions and extremes, we must prioritize our needs over our wants. We need to look at, are these policy decisions or are we reacting and wanting to make emotional decisions based on community outcry? Not to discount that community feedback is important, but we need to look at all of these, whether it's small class size, budget, or SROs, that they're not political agendas and they are thoughtful deliberations from the Board of Education, having meaningful conversations and listening to our community members and making informed decisions based on research data. Thank you.
Thank you.
Clearly, class size is always important and we should retain the smaller classes as we're able. But we do also have other issues that we have to balance. With respect to the SROs, the studies have shown that they don't really help keep our children safe. There are other ways to do that. I understand that we're terrified of what's happened throughout the country. I'm just as terrified as everybody else. But the way to really protect our kids is to not have them in schools with weapons. There are numerous studies that have shown and numerous reports that have come through that say that weapons have been left on the premises, they have been left on a desk, they've been left in a bathroom. The guns they have gone off on their own unintentionally. There are numerous stories about that, and I would like to avoid weapons in our schools. There are better ways to handle it. We could make sure that we have bulletproof glass. We could make sure that we have better doors. We could make sure that there are fencing. I think we should have, quite honestly, more therapeutic personnel in there. I think we should have social workers and more psychologists in there. They can really help the children and the adolescents. Let's face it, most of the people who perpetuated the shootings throughout, that's the phrase, the shootings throughout the country, they have been either a current or a past student. And this could be nipped in the bud, I think, with, well, not nipped in the bud, but dealt with better with professional and emotional professionals in the schools.
Thank you, Ken. All right, we'll go to a question. Oh, any rebuttal? Yeah, Gary?
Important policy decisions should not hinge solely on a budget vote. Relying solely on the outcome of a vote completely undermines the necessity for thoughtful deliberations. A budget vote, which essentially revolves around the question of whether or not to allocate a certain dollar amount, overlooks the broader considerations necessary for effective governance. Policy should instead stem from thorough board discussions informed by research and data, leading to a reasoned and rational outcome.
Okay, any other rebuttal?
Yeah, I'll use a rebuttal, just to expand on my answer. Your question was, how would I balance, I believe, personal convictions with those needs? And you do that by keeping sight of what our strategic objectives are and evaluating how any particular policy questions would either further accomplishing those objectives or not. Thank you.
Yes.
Well, okay.
Does anybody here really know why the proposal is to go over the tax cap? Do we understand the reasons behind it? I don't think that's been communicated to us. Over the last 10 years, the enrollment in our schools has decreased and the budget has continued to go up. And I'm not saying that that's a problem. I am saying that we have to really look at each line item to see how things are being categorized, just to see if with the changes that take place within the district and the cost to the district are being amended and we can actually free up some funds and redistribute them.
Yeah, 30 second on both. Thank you. All right, we're at question number 3 now. And we'll start with you, Kelly. Each candidate has used one of their 2 rebuttals. Question number 3, Kelly, we'll start with you. How can the Board of Education understand and evaluate community opinion about different educational or school priorities? And is there a role for using surveys?
The short answer, yes. I think we can use surveys to collect data, but there's always going to be a group of people who will not be taking the survey. And surveying is just one way to collect data and one way to hear feedback. I think we have to think about how we can listen in our community, how we can be thoughtful, how we could be proactive in the decisions that we make and not just reactive to what is happening just currently right now in the present. Thank you.
Right, thank you. Kim?
We have a lot of surveys. Surveys really do serve a good purpose, but so many people are not filling out the surveys because they're just surveyed out. But the importance of surveys, quite honestly, should go hand in hand with using our common sense and using our logic. If a survey says a certain percentage of people are completely happy and only a small amount of people actually responded to the survey, we know what's going on in our town. We can't ignore that just because we have a survey that might be interpreted differently. And I think we need to use more than just a survey in how we plan to go forward. So there is a use for them, but I think they need to be condensed to a certain degree and used with other other pieces of information that we have from our own experience.
All right, so I'll read the question. How can the Board of Education understand and evaluate community opinion about different educational or school priorities? And is there a role for using surveys?
I think the best way for the board and administration to understand community values and desires is through an iterative process. Surveys could be part of that. They're one way to gather data, but it's important for the Board of Education to be having a comprehensive dialogue with all of our stakeholders to synthesize the board's perception of those stakeholders' views and then communicate the board's and administration's collective understanding of those views and intention for, vision for where we should go. And ideally, that's not just done once, that's done in an iterative process where you can then perhaps have more surveys, have more community engagement to iterate on and improve upon that collaborative vision that we try to build together.
Great. Thank you. Any rebuttal time requested? All right. Thank you, candidates. Question number 4. And I believe we will start with Kim. Okay. One of the most important responsibilities of the Board of Ed is, as a Board of Ed member, is district financial management and the adoption of a budget. What does fiscal responsibility mean to you?
Fiscal responsibility to me means reviewing the budget in detail every single year. Not necessarily rolling over the budget from the year before and just assuming that the same needs are there. I argue that they aren't. And in any event, to really be a good fiduciary, I think you really need to analyze what has happened over the past year and how changes have been made. I think also communication with respect to the Board of Ed and the budget has been lacking a bit. And I think if the community as a whole was given more clear answers about the budget instead of being given it in very general terms and general categories and finding out how everything is divided, I think first of all, there might be less resistance to whatever budget is brought up, but I want you to remember that whatever budget is decided on this year, it's gonna serve as the baseline for next year. Now, the budget itself, I'm not running, the budget is a separate vote, I'm voting for the Board of Ed. All I can promise is that I will in fact ask questions of every single line and analyze it and determine if it's really something that we need or we can redistribute for the best interest of our children and give that extra into their programs.
Okay, thank you, Kim. Tim, want me to read the question?
Yeah, please reread the question.
One of the most important responsibilities of a BOE member is district financial management and the adoption of a budget. What does fiscal responsibility mean to you?
Sure. Fiscal responsibility means ensuring that we take care of our assets in the most responsible way. In regards to reviewing past budgets, my observation has been that the district does review all of the past budgets. All of the various budget presentations I attend describe changes, either areas where costs have gone up or cuts that various departments have been able to make to achieve savings. So my observation was that there are not actually rollover budgets. In terms of fiscal responsibility, and talking about budget, I think it's so important we have this amazing asset, which is a high-performing school district with a terrific reputation. And what's been challenging for education in our region is that there has been a lot of inflation recently. It just costs more for everything. You see it at the grocery store, and it's no different in the schools. It costs more today to provide the same education that students received previously. It's important in order to maintain the school district we have that we continue to invest in our schools to offset increased expenses due to inflation. The proposed tax levy increase is 2.99% here. It's lower than all of our peer districts. Byram Hills is going for 3.28, Katona's 3.4, Scarsdale's 4.5, and Rye is 6.9.
Okay. Thank you, Tim. Kelly, would you like me to read the question?
I think that would be
Okay.
okay. So, yes, I agree. This actually might have been the year to go over the tax cap. But for what and by how much? It is a big ask to say we want to raise your taxes to our community and taxpayers. I firmly believe we can achieve greater fiscal responsibility while maintaining the quality of education and programs our students deserve. We could have done better. I respectfully voted nay to adopt the proposed budget because as a representative, my foremost priority is the well-being of our students and ensuring they receive the best possible education. But equally important is advocating for the fiscal interests of our taxpayers. Therefore, with a focus on both students and taxpayers, I had to vote no to adopt the proposed budget, knowing the outcome and knowing that I was the lone dissenting vote.
All right, thank you. Any rebuttal time requested? All right, we'll move to question number 5. Tim, we'll start with you. Question number 5, what is the role of an SRO in a school building? Does your answer change when considering the question at the elementary, middle, or high school level?
School resource officers are such a challenging decision. As parents, we all want our children to be safe. I personally hate the fact that my children have to see visible signs of the reality that they live in, which is that every year in this country, some number of people take guns to schools and harm children. As a fire chief, a technique I've found useful is to imagine that a bad outcome occurred and I'm speaking to a family member of a civilian or a firefighter who was killed. And I'm saying, I'm so sorry for your loss. Here are the things we did and here's what happened. And I need to feel really confident that it took appropriate steps to account for that possibility. And that depends on cost in terms of resource availability. So looking at the cost, median income home in Chappaqua pays $20,057 in taxes. Under the adopted budget, $158 of those dollars would fund having a Newcastle police officer in every school. That's $13 a month. If we spend that $13 a month, and if someone did come to our schools to harm our children, there'd be a police officer there from the beginning and a second backup police officer arriving in minutes. If we don't, someone will be harming our children for several minutes until that first police officer arrives.
Okay, thank you. We're moving to Kaylee, read the question, or?
School resource officers. SROs does not solely define safety and security. It cannot define safety and security alone. Safety is paramount. The questions we should be asking is not, do we want an SRO, yes or no? The more accurate and appropriate question should be, are our schools safe? Will SROs raise the level of security in our buildings? Will they aid in identifying students in distress? Are our schools safe? How can we make them even safer? What systems and procedures have we implemented to strengthen our security? What does research show? What is our community saying? What are the next steps? Security audits, security surveys? Is having a designated SRO the next layer to increase safety and security? In 3 years, I was the only board member to be able to attend the NISBA conferences and listen to experts unpack school shootings like Uvalde, the best practices, what worked, what didn't work. Thank you.
Thank you, Kim.
I understand wanting to protect our children. I just don't think SROs are going to do it. They can't. How can we expect a sole person with a typical weapon, a typical gun, to be able to fight against someone who comes in with an assault weapon? That doesn't make any sense. And what we've seen across the country is people who are supposed to fulfill that role have taken off, terrified, because they know there's no way that they can handle the situation individually. I already went over the safety measures that could be done within the schools, bulletproof glass, et cetera, but with respect to the SROs, their presence can actually contradict what people are saying as far as them being productive. They can actually have a negative effect. It has been studied and shown that the presence in the schools can contribute to suspensions, expulsions, increased absenteeism, decreased graduation and college entry rates. It also disproportionately affects the marginalized students and students with disabilities. I think we have to think about that. We can do other things to directly make our children safer on the grounds. We don't need an individual person going in there with a weapon that could be discharged unexpectedly or be even taken out of the holster by a student.
All right, thank you. And we're about halfway through. I'm gonna ask any rebuttal time.
I'll use rebuttal.
Um,
I'll rebut that, yeah.
Yeah, so you can give us context.
Yeah.
We've done about 5 questions, we have about 5 or 6 more, so we'll probably get through all the questions. So this will be your second and last. Okay.
Realize, just nationally, there are very widely varying implementations of what a school resource officer is. So looking at observational nationwide studies has some usefulness, but it's also important to think about just what is the situation here. It's a town of Newcastle police officer, that's who it is. So whether it's a town of Newcastle police officer who's stationed at a school in the role of a school resource officer, or it's just someone responding from their patrol, it's from the same group of people, it is the same type of personnel. Spoken with Chief Carroll, and he had shared a commitment.
30 seconds.
Just finish the sentence.
He shared a commitment to make sure that all of his officers continue to receive the highest levels of training, which is what most of the best practices show.
Okay. Any other rebuttals?
Not at the moment. Not at the moment.
Okay, thank you. Alright, so now we will move to question number 6, thank you candidates. And we will start with Kaylee. The question is, how can the board ensure that the issues raised by the recent special education audit are addressed? Are there changes to our district's special education services that you would advocate?
With respect to special ed, I have the professional expertise as an educator to evaluate what continued changes and improvements need to be made in our special ed program. The district conducted a special ed audit in 2021 and have really worked hard to make positive changes. As an educator, I have knowledge about a whole range of children, student needs beyond my own 3 kids. We have professionals and experts, partnerships with the CPTA, Special Ed Committee, and credible parent groups. We must continue to build strong relationships between the special ed department and the critical partnerships we have with our community of advocates. Learning disabilities falls on a continuum, mild to severe. We need to examine our tiers of intervention, remediation, and support services. We look at our curriculum choices for general ed, and we must consider our special ed students with IEPs and 504s. Tailoring instruction, meeting kids where they are, differentiated learning, support systems, classification processes, providing services, all for students who may be excelling or struggling. One size does not fit all, nor fits most. Every student, each student, all students must be given the same level of care and attention to be successful in their learning.
Thank you.
I agree with that to a certain extent, but special ed, there are things that can be improved. As I said, I had a very bad experience with special ed in my first child's academic career. The special ed we have now, they're wonderful. I can't say anything against them. They're incredibly supportive of the students, helpful to the students. They really put the student first now. However, there are still things that can be done. An example of others, but an example, dyslexia. It's more prevalent than people would like to know, like to believe. And if that's determined, if it's diagnosed in the younger grades, which it usually is, if we had the appropriate credentialed teachers teaching in the proper methodology, we could actually help those students get back on a normal path within a couple of years when you deal with them at that age. We don't have that. We don't have a group of teachers who are even certified in either of the methodologies right now. I know that there is a goal to have some teachers go through the first level of Wilson, but this is a long time coming, and these students are still smart. They just have a different way of learning. And quite honestly, the method of learning for those students is just as good for the rest of the students. I think it should be throughout the school. But that's just one example of how we can continue to move special ed forward.
Okay. Tim, I'll read the question or do you?
Please repeat it, yeah.
How can the board ensure that the issues raised by the recent special education audit are addressed? And are there changes to our district's special education services that you would advocate?
Yeah, an area for improvement in our special education services is to reduce the number of out-of-district placements. Every child here deserves to go to school in their community, where their families are, where their friends are. And we have students who are sent to nearby peer districts and are able to receive instruction, and I would like, if elected, I would like to move our special education's services to reduce the number of out-of-district placements so that our children can be here. You know, from a management perspective, the way you do that is by identifying metrics that you want to see progress on and communicating that clearly to your subject matter expert, to your superintendent. Really clear black and white metric is number of out-of-district placements. We could set a goal to reduce that and ask our superintendent, Dr. Ackerman, for her plan to accomplish that.
Thank you. Rebuttal?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yes, please.
please, you second.
Out-of-district placements are not as readily available as one would think. It's actually rather difficult. Quite honestly, I argue that the majority of the people in this town whose children have learning issues that are not being met within this district actually pay for private school because they cannot get out-of-district placement. I've experienced this personally. And if a child is deemed to go out of district, if it's deemed necessary for a child to go out of district, there's a reason for that. The school district doesn't have what that child needs to learn or to access the education they should be. It doesn't need to be a permanent change, but it
Add to your closing statement if you
Sure.
want. Okay. It says on the script water break, so I'm just gonna get a quick. I'm entitled, right?
Yes.
Back-to-back forums. Okay. Question number 7. We will start
I'm not
with
worried about you either.
you, Kim. Question number 7. With anti-Semitism at historic highs, how do you feel we can prevent anti-Semitism from spreading in our schools?
We're living in a very tough time right now. Everybody's highly charged emotionally, understandably, because it's horrible. But we have to think of the health of our students. And this is another area where I do believe that professional social workers and psychologists could really help the students. They can see what's going on with these students. They'll be able to help them learn how to talk to each other because that's a big problem right now. People are not talking with each other. And to have a professional on the school grounds to help these students learn how to do this not only helps the situation we're dealing with now, but it only prepares them well for proceeding in life. If you cannot communicate effectively and try to understand where everybody's coming from, it's gonna be a difficult road for you.
Thank you. Tim?
Yeah, could you repeat the question?
Yeah. With anti-Semitism at historic highs, how do you feel we can prevent anti-Semitism from spreading in our schools?
Yeah, I think the one way to accomplish that is through continuing to teach our children how to think critically, to make sure that our students are exposed to have the skill in evaluating sources, in evaluating narratives so that they can discern what information they're being presented either through school or at home or through social media. They can discern what information to trust, what information to seek verification of. I think another area is to cultivate social confidence. So much bullying and so much hate speech often seems to stem more from social, essentially people establishing social hierarchies, and having more collaborative, healthy social interaction will resist that.
Great, thank you. Kaylee?
Anti-Semitism. There is no place for that in our schools. Period. It's like asking the question if we allow hate speech in our schools and buildings. We do not allow that. It's not okay. It's about continual reflection, conversation, listening, and asking questions to make every student in our district feel represented, seen, and heard. The DEI work we have going in our district, I think it's important to know that performative DEI is unacceptable and anti-Semitism belongs under our DEI work. We can do better. There's so much hate in this world. I don't know why we need to have blanket statements regarding hate and which groups of people we want to support and we want to love and we want to protect. I think we can stand with our Jewish students as well as our Arab students. There is no reason why we cannot just stand up to hate. I don't understand. There's no room for that. We won't allow it.
Okay, thank you. So continuing, question 8 is along the same lines, and we will start with you, Tim.
Okay.
How do we ensure that all students in our community feel safe, supported, and ready to learn? The district has an anti-racism and diversity resolution and recently adopted an anti-Semitism resolution. Do you think the district needs to take specific action to protect other populations of students such as Arab Muslim students?
I think that we need to protect every student. Every student needs to feel safe. The inclusion and belonging survey results from last year were recently released. I think that the administration is taking an appropriate management approach to this challenge of making sure all our students feel that they belong. But a challenge with that data is that it is hard to discern if particular interventions are helping our students feel safer or that they belong, or if the changes we see in that survey data is just reflecting global background, or which particular intervention might be having the effects we want. So I would ask our administration if they're able to drill down more on data to try to associate groups of survey results with particular variables, such as whether, for example, students who had more contact with curriculum that was supported by our inclusion and belonging professional developers, if those students seem to have a greater increase in inclusion and belonging, that would tell us that intervention is working. If we could compare survey results from students in larger or smaller class sizes, we could try to identify which variables to push.
Okay, thank you, Tim. Kelly, I can reread the question?
No, I'm okay, thank
Okay.
you. DEI, we can do better. And for the elephant in the room, I am the only currently sitting minority board member. And I'll repeat this, I think it's important to note that performative DEI is unacceptable. DEI work and initiatives need to be ongoing. It can't just be about hiring someone, buying a book, going to a workshop. It's about continual reflection, conversation, listening, and asking questions to make every student in our district feel represented, seen, and heard. Cognitive science tells us that students learn better when they feel that they are part of the learning community. Learning outcomes for our district will improve as more students connect, engage, and feel that their experience matters. Intentionally or unintentionally, we may have, and I will quote, divided everyone involved. That was a quote from a Curly student. We can do better.
Okay, thank you, Kelly. Okay.
Can you read the question one more
Sure,
time?
please. How do we ensure that all students in our community feel safe, supported, and ready to learn? The district has an anti-racism and diversity resolution and recently adopted an anti-Semitism resolution. Do do you think the district needs to take specific action to protect other populations of students, such as Arab Muslim students?
That's a tough one because I think the lack of communication among people right now is making it difficult. I think our kids are suffering all across the board. They're being forced to take a stand or lose a friend. They're being affected in a terribly emotional way. I understand where it's coming from. I actually was on the committee for the CREI committee, which dealt with a lot of these issues. And since over the last couple of months, I've spoken to a number of my Jewish friends. And one thing that we never actually had thought of, quite honestly, with the CREI, we did not have a Jewish member on our committee, but we weren't responsible for appointing that person either. However, I've learned a lot from my Jewish friends about their history, and I never thought of them, quite honestly, as a minority given where we live because we look alike. We all look alike. But I think that's something, I think they should be brought under the umbrella of DEI, quite honestly, because anybody who is a victim of what they're going through, what our Muslim students are going through, what our Black students are going through, Hispanic students are going through, they all need to be supported. And I think communication is going to be a great part to that support. And we need to teach them and give them a space to do it that's safe.
Okay, thank you. Well, okay. 3 more questions and then we have a closing statement. Okay, so we will start with Dr. Kaylee. What role do you think the BOE should play in curriculum decisions? What about the role of parents?
Parents?
Yes. So what role do you think the BOE should play in curriculum decisions? What about the role of parents?
So curriculum review is really not the Board of Ed's job, but with that said, we had a situation where we needed to look at a specific unit of study more closely or a program closely. We need to make sure that we, pertaining to, I think my mic is off.
Yeah.
Pertaining,
Which space?
no, I'm
Start
not
early.
trying to think.
Space maybe? How about your mics, Kim?
Mine seems to be fine.
So I'll start over.
Yes.
Is that okay? Curriculum decisions. Short answer, it's not the board's job. It's also not the parent's job. I am a teacher, but I'm also a parent here. It is not my job because we have a district full of experts who are trained to do this job. We pay very good money for them to do this job and be here. We have competent teachers, we have strong administrators, and we have amazing staff developers. I think it's okay for the parents to want to know and understand if, for example, if the history lessons that we're teaching is accurate. If we're presenting facts and opinions and we're able to distinguish between those, if we are teaching history accurately, and do we assess our sources, and do we teach how to analyze data and to think critically. But it is not the job of the board member or the job of a parent. Thank you.
Thank you. Kim, same question?
The role of the Board of Education is two-pronged. It is to help determine the budget, make certain decisions, some tough, The other role is to help develop policy. They're not supposed to develop curriculum. That is supposed to be left to the superintendent and the professionals who we have on board to help us with that. That's not to say that the Board of Ed cannot talk about what's important or what they think might be important, but they have no direct control over the curriculum. And I'm not sure that the parent should either. Our mission statement of the Chappaqua Schools says that we want to we have a commitment to intellectual freedom, where we'll teach the basic skills, foster creative and critical thinking, to provide a foundation for lifelong learning. We have to trust the people we have teaching our students. It's one of the reasons why we moved here. But we have to trust them to know across the board what is good for them. I don't mind my children learning virtually every good and bad aspect of our history, of somebody else's history, because only by having that information will they be able to absorb it and parse it and try to figure out their own individual decisions. So bottom line is, however, the Board of Ed does not really have a direct role in curriculum, and I don't believe the parents do either.
Okay.
Yeah, the Board of Education should not be developing or setting curriculum. That's left to our professional staff, our administrators, in collaboration with our faculty. Parents' involvement, parents should absolutely have the right to question elements of either curriculum or sources, and we have a process for that, and there should be a policy, and there is, to handle those questions in a fair and balanced manner. And if the question is, has sufficient merit then to trigger that policy, then our faculty and administrators should evaluate, and my understanding is this is the policy and I would support it. Our faculty and administrators would then evaluate that curriculum or source and make their determination as to the appropriateness of that. Again, with the fact that a question or complaint had been lodged having no bearing in that decision.
Okay, thank you. Question number 9, and this one we will start with you, Kim?
Okay.
No. Question 10. We'll start with you, Kim, that's correct.
Is this the last one?
One more. You have 2 more and then the closing statement. We're making good time because your answers are very succinct and to the point. Other debates go on, people use their 90 seconds plus. Are our schools doing enough to support student health, mental health? Are our schools doing enough to support student mental health? And is there too much emphasis on academic rigor when determining staffing and budget priorities?
Juvenile and teenage mental health has become a real issue. Our children are under a lot of stress. We live in a high-stress school district. That's why we're here. We want our children to achieve very high goals. And they can do it, but they need additional support, which is why I really believe that we need to have these extra professionals in the schools, the mental health professionals, the psychologists, the social workers, to help them deal with the life they're living here in this district. It's not necessarily the same life a student in Yonkers is living. It's a different type of stress and a different type of pressure too. So I think we could do a little bit better there. I don't think having a school counselor or 2 school counselors for all of the students in that particular school is quite enough. I think they need to do more than just speak to a student for 30 minutes once in a 6-day cycle. I think they might need something more than that, or at least have somebody they can go to who can aid them in dealing with whatever emotional stress they're trying to work themselves through, try to work through. That's how we make our students successful. If they pass on to college and they don't get this addressed, some people have very bad outcomes even after a successful college career. I'd like to avoid that.
Right. Tim?
I think we need to be very mindful of mental health. You know, in recent years, there have been curriculum and course changes to push rigor down into middle school, to open up 8th grade math for all. And in making those decisions, I think that we have to be really careful to make sure that we are attending to the emotional needs of all our students, including those who maybe now feel pressured to take the more, the 8th grade algebra instead of taking the standard 8th grade math that might have been a more appropriate fit for them. Structurally, following with that example, we don't run a section of standard 8th grade math if we have less than 10 students. Right there then creates a pressure on students to not choose that. That course should be available no matter how many students want to take it. Chasing more APs and more rigor is not necessarily best for all of our students, and we should be establishing metrics and ways to measure the way that our curriculum and course changes are impacting our students' mental and emotional health.
Kelly?
Loneliness, bullying, depression, isolation, not being connected, not feeling heard, not being seen, hurt, pain. These are all one of many issues our students are struggling right now. We must give our students the care and attention they seek and they need, especially now where we are just coming out of our COVID years. So much has been lost, disrupted, removed, and sacrificed. Where are the gaps? How can we close the gaps? We must normalize the conversations about mental health and wellness. We need to be intentional in our observations and asking the right questions. We need to build good habits and celebrate the good mental habits. Again, we need to do better, and we can do better. Do we have designated school psychologists? How many guidance counselors do we have in our district? How does the guidance department work in partnership with our students, teachers, and the home?
Great. Last question of the night. And we'll start with you, Tim. Is there anything you would propose to improve district transparency and communication with the community?
And what I hear in speaking with members of the community who are seeking more transparency or better communication is just the challenge of having a productive forum where people can be heard and can express their views. I know that current Board of Education has started holding office hours. That's one way. I think another is through the iterative process I mentioned earlier of more often trying to summarize and synthesize the perspectives the board has heard and then share the board's, to share and reflect the board's understanding of those perspectives to then seek and give the opportunity for continued engagement and iteration on that understanding.
Thank you. Kelly?
I think there's so much to be done in terms of communications in our district. This is something that is ongoing and we are constantly struggling with, I feel. I mentioned this before, but we need to communicate with a proactive mind and not be reactive to what just happened, but to think ahead and think about how we want to communicate certain ideas, what's happened in our district, what's happening in the world, and how we would like to communicate that to our community. I think it's important that we continue to be better at listening to one another. There's a lot of people who's good at talking but not listening. And when you listen carefully and when you listen with an open mind without coming to the table with preconceived notions about any one subject or topic or person, you're able to have thoughtful deliberations and meaningful conversations. Thank you.
Thank you. And Kim?
I think communication here is a bit of, I'm talking with respect to the Board of Education and the rest of the district. I think communication is a bit of a problem. I think the Board of Ed should be more inclined to give us more information about their reasoning, why they're doing certain things. For instance, things happen in the community. They should have been the ones to tell us about the arrest of that SRO months back. And they didn't. They weren't the ones who did that. They should be more, give us more explanation as to why they want to propose a particular budget, not just this year, but every year. Why? We should be able to look at every budget and know what each category is and what is included in that category so that we don't think that perhaps something's getting fudged. Quite honestly, I've attended board meetings over the past several years. I have been at board meetings, quite honestly, where we've had some very courageous students who have gone to speak to the Board of Ed. Quite honestly, some of these past board members have been incredibly rude. They don't even look at the students who were talking to them. And it took a lot for these students to speak to them about many issues. In fact, they were just sitting up on the podium or their table working on their laptops. That's so disrespectful. And that says a lot about where we need to go for more communication, better communication.
Okay, thank you candidates. That ends our Q&A portion. We'll now move to closing statements. And we'll go in reverse order from the opening statement. We'll start with you, Tim, 90 seconds.
If I'm elected to the Board of Education, I'll keep the best interests of our children and their education at the heart of every decision. I'll take strong steps to make sure our teachers feel valued, that they're treated as important stakeholders, and that we leverage their expertise and firsthand classroom experience when developing curriculum or establishing classroom best practices. I'll do my best to be authentic, open, to lead with curiosity, and to have grace and gratitude. I'll be a steward, trying to preserve and expand on the magic of this community, which I first moved to with my family 39 years ago, and love. I want my girls and everyone else's children to feel the curiosity, the collaboration, and the possibility that I experienced growing up here. And I hope to do my part to help those qualities persist far into the future so that maybe someday my grandkids might consider raising their families here in Chappaqua.
Thank you, Tim. Kim?
I've been privileged enough to sit on the Board of Education for a Special Act School District for the last 2 years, the Greenberg North Castle Special Act School District. It's a school district that receives children from New York City up through Putnam County, residential and day, and it's all for students who have had been unsuccessful in their home districts as well as out of placement districts. It could be emotional problems, behavioral problems, some physical problems. I've learned a lot. I completed the New York State mandatory training for Board of Education. I feel that I have a clear understanding as to what the role of the Board of Education is and how I might be able to aid it. I've been doing that for the last 2 years. I'm also an ardent proponent of fiscal responsibility. If we're going, as I said earlier, if we're going to exceed the tax cap, then we need to know precisely why. Over the past 10 years, I mentioned about the enrollment and how the budget keeps going up. We need to have it made clear to us why that's happening. I can promise you that I would make communication a priority. I can promise you that as a litigator, I'm used to arguing. You can ask my husband over there. And I can be that squeaky wheel who can ask all the questions that you may have.
Thank you, Kaylee.
In closing, again, I would like to thank the League of Women Voters, my fellow candidates, and the community for joining me here this evening. Tonight, you came out and are tuning in because you care. Our children, their safety, the education, and the budget. As we approach the upcoming election on May 21st with one open seat, my seat, I ask for your support in re-electing me to be your school board trustee. Balancing fiscal responsibility while ensuring every student receives a quality education is a challenge I take very seriously. With your continued support, I will prioritize accountability, partnership, and serving all students while understanding a range of community interests. Together, we made significant strides forward and learned how to pivot to navigate challenges, always with the well-being of our students and faculty at the forefront. As a teacher and a mom with 3 children of my own in 5th, 8th, and 10th grade, I bring firsthand understanding of diverse needs and perspectives across our district. I am committed to fiduciary obligations to all of our taxpayers and not only the ones with school-age children. I bring experience, understanding. I come with a posture to serve and lean into the needs of our community, our whole community. My work here doesn't feel finished. I still have a lot that I want the district to accomplish, and honestly, I'm probably a better candidate today than I was 3 years ago. Please mark your calendars for May 21st to re-elect Kaylee Huang as your school board trustee. Kaylee Huang, I'm first on the ballot. Thank you.
Great, thank you, and thank you to all of our candidates. Great discussion tonight. Thank you for raising your hand to serve the community. You should be commended, and thank you to the audience for coming tonight. And those watching at home, thank you to IT in the back. They had a little outage, but we worked through it. And thank you for our timekeepers. And thank you most importantly to the league. It's important to know that the league really plays an important role here in the community and across the country. It works to register voters, educate voters on the issues of the day, protects their right to vote. It's vital strength of our democracy. Your local league is made up of volunteers who devote their time and energy. Your participation and assistance is always welcome, and your financial contributions will be appreciated. Remember, this is a league slogan. Remember, democracy is not a spectator sport. I encourage everyone to vote. Thank you and have a good evening.
We just want to thank Doug for your excellent efforts keeping the forum running smoothly. The league wants to thank all of the candidates for taking the time to share their views with our community. We hope all community members will exercise their right to vote Tuesday, May 21st from 7 a.m. to 9 p.m. at the Horace Greeley High School gym or through an early mail ballot available from the district clerk, Lisa Elsner. Thank you and good night.
For being with us?